Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki is known as one of the best pieces of financial literature written in the past few decades. It's based on the premise that growing up, Robert had two fathers: his biological father, which he called his poor dad, who was highly educated with a PhD, and the father of his best friend, who he called his rich dad, who never even finished the 8th grade. His rich dad was a business owner and died leaving millions of dollars to his family and community, while his poor dad died in debt. Both men believed in education, but went about their beliefs in education in vastly different ways, and both his rich dad and his poor dad helped to shape Robert's mind and allow him to evaluate two different perspectives when it comes to finances and how to view money in general. The main takeaways that I got from this book are the following. 1. Rich people do not work for money. Instead, they make money work for them. In contrast, the poor and middle class work for money. 2. Rich people acquire assets. Meanwhile, the poor and middle class acquire liabilities, some of which they believe are assets. To acquire an asset, you must know the difference between an asset and a liability, something which many people do not fully understand. And one of the keys to acquiring wealth is to have the knowledge and take action to acquire assets over time while minimizing liabilities. According to Kiyosaki, assets fall into the following categories: stocks, bonds, income-generating real estate, notes, royalties from intellectual properties such as movies, scripts, and patents, and anything else that has value, produces income, or appreciates, and has a ready market. 3. Financial literacy and intelligence are invaluable, and they involve knowing what to do with money after it has been made, how to keep it longer, and how to put this money to good use so that it can become a worker to help you make more money. As stated in the book, once a dollar goes into your asset column, it becomes your employee. Kiyosaki reminds people that financial IQ is made up of knowledge from 4 broad areas of expertise: accounting, investing, understanding markets, and the law. And number 4, money kept is much more important than money earned. Kiyosaki detailed his financial journey growing up, starting out from trying to literally create money in his own driveway to having a comic book side hustle that he co-owned with his best friend. Through this business venture, he learned how to create income without having to be physically present and was able to make money without trading his time, something that was a huge milestone that helped shape his perspective for future business opportunities. Kiyosaki also believed that the single most powerful asset that we all have is our mind. If there was something he wanted to buy, his poor dad would say that we can't afford this, but his rich dad would instead challenge Kiyosaki to ask the question of, how can I afford this? The main idea here was that simply stating that you cannot afford something allows you to turn off your mind and be lazy. You simply accept the fact that something is out of your reach and continue on your day. However, when you ask yourself, how can I afford something, your mind will start to think of ways to earn extra income, and you will, in a sense, work out the part of your brain that exercises financial hustle to go out and make some extra income. And this emphasis on mindset was demonstrated throughout this book. As he stated, there is a difference between being poor and being broke. Being broke is a temporary financial situation, while being poor is a mindset that is eternal. Furthermore, we are told that great opportunities are not seen with your eyes, they are seen with your mind. And you want to know a little bit about a lot of different areas instead of specializing and only knowing about one thing if you plan on being a business owner. Kiyosaki learned that through his rich dad, there was no reason to overcomplicate things, and that the simplification of what assets and liabilities are many times frustrated adults because it seems so simple. And if something so simple was the reason why they were not financially successful, it was insulting to their pride and hurt their ego. In Rich Dad's words, you must know the difference between an asset and a liability, and buy assets. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. His rich dad believed in keeping things simple, and this definition of an asset and a liability is what helped him to decide where to allocate his money and to learn to build his asset column. A key principle that Kiyosaki gained from his rich dad was that money comes and goes, but if you have the education about how money works, you gain power over it and can begin building wealth. Education is more valuable than money in the long run. Financial education was vital to financial success, and through this, he learned that there are 3 different types of income: earned income through a job, portfolio income earned through assets and the accumulation of interest, dividends, and capital gains acquired through these assets, and passive income, which includes rental income, royalties, or any type of income earned that does not require you to be physically present or was generated with virtually no effort is passive. Another idea that Rich Dad warns against is that many financial problems are caused by keeping up with the Joneses, which is another way of saying to avoid lifestyle inflation. Basically, you want to avoid buying liabilities like cars, clothes, and jewels that make you appear rich or trying to one-up what your neighbor has. If you have the $1,000 watch, now you might be inclined to buy the $300 pair of shoes to match with the $200 chain and the $400 pair of sunglasses. This principle is reflected in the phrase, an important distinction is that rich people buy luxuries last, while the poor and middle class tend to buy luxuries first. Focus Focus on building up your asset column and allow the cash flow your assets generate to pay for your items. Rich Dad tells us that each dollar in my asset column was a great employee, working hard to make more employees and buy the boss a new Porsche. If we dive deeper into this point, we can also see why Rich Dad also tells us that more money seldom solves someone's money problems. Because the more money we make, the more money we tend to spend to match our newfound income. We also learned that through this book that there is a distinction between being rich and being wealthy. Wealth's definition to Rich Dad is a person's ability to survive so many number of days forward, or if I stopped working today, how long could I survive? A wealthy person may not have the appearance of someone who looks rich, but perhaps they've created enough cash flow from their assets to cover their expenses such that they do not need to work if they live within their means and live frugally. Meanwhile, someone who is rich may have a large amount of cash at their disposal and many nice things, but perhaps they lack the cash flow to cover their month-to-month expenses, so they continue to work because they know that eventually their collection of cash will be exhausted. Furthermore, we learned that people's lives are controlled by two strong emotions, fear and greed, and that if we can understand these emotions and learn how they control people's lives, we can use this information to our advantage to seize more opportunity. These emotions can heavily influence the stock market, how people evaluate business opportunities, real estate, and more. Something else we learned through this book is that most people's largest expense is taxes, and many do not realize that they work about the first 4 months of the year just for the government. While there is a need for employees, Rich Dad tells us that financial struggle is often the result of people working all their lives for someone else. By being an employee, you're not challenged to learn about taxes or how you can minimize your expenses. However, by starting a business, you will be faced with learning new ways to minimize money spent through tax advantages you are entitled to by being a business owner. People can become overwhelmed when they hear about things like corporations because people will begin to think of large buildings or offices, but Kiyosaki learns that a corporation is nothing more than just a piece of paper that the rich use to take advantage of tax laws that are set in place to help business owners. Kiyosaki says that he personally owns businesses that do not require his presence and tells us, if I have to work there, it's not a business, it becomes my job. Kiyosaki also uses fear to his advantage, telling us that he always paid himself first, even if he owed others money, because he would use the motivation of knowing money was owed to help him cultivate more ways to create income to pay off his debts. He learned that if he paid himself last, as most people do, then he would not feel any pressure to make more money because he did not owe anyone. However, when people are owed money, he knew that they must be paid back, such as the government or other businesses, and they would come after him if he would not be able to do so. This is a principle he learned from another book called The Richest Man in Babylon. There are many more lessons to be learned from reading or listening to the audiobook yourself, so I would encourage you all to support the author and listen to Rich Dad Poor Dad and make the investment into your financial education, which I also found to be very enjoyable. The link to this book will be down below in the description. Thank you for watching.